Hi, I'm Rissel, and welcome to me screaming into the void, mostly about books. There is a tag going around on BookTube about the library and the use of the library. And I wanted to do it, but then I realized I don't really use my library anymore. It didn't happen all at once. I loved the library as a kid and as a teenager and as a student. It is one of the few places, at least when I was a student, where you didn't have to pay to be there. You could just sit and read or study. And I don't really understand why, but slowly over time, I haven't really used my library so often. And I think that's sad because I think both libraries are important as an institution for the society at large, but I also love just being at the library. So for 2025, I'm going to challenge myself and you, if you want to join me, to visit the library at least once a month. And to do that, I have created some prompts that are inspired by what the library offers us in regard to activities and displays and all that good stuff. I've written down 12 different prompts in here, and I'm going to have 2 of them each month. So now we are going to go for January, and we'll see what 2 prompts we have for January. And for January, we have themed displays. Now, with themed displays, I'm thinking about, at least they do it in my library, where they have these displays based on relevant themes. Now in December, we very often have Christmas. In September, when school starts, we very often have one based on school start. So for this prompt, I will have to pick either a book from the themed display or a book that is connected to this themed display. And the second prompt for January is random number. So with this prompt, I will have to give all of the shelves, or you can go with the bookshelf as a whole, and give them sort of a number. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, whatever number shelves there are. Include and exclude anything you will want. I will probably include all of it. And then I'll pick a random number generator, and the random number generator will then give me the shelf that I need to pick a book from for that month. So that is the 2 prompts for January. And as I stated, I have 12 prompts, so these will now go back into my little bowl here, and I'll pick again. And the second time that these 2 are picked, they'll go out of the bowl. So that's the way I'm going to do it. We are now in February, and for the first prompt in February, we have mood read. So mood at the library is that you can't really decide beforehand what book you want to read. You have to go to the library, and then you just have to feel around for what can inspire you for what looks interesting. And the other prompt for February is this one. I can't really see. It was upside down. So this is random letter fiction. So fiction books are very often organized by the author's last name. That's at least how I'm used to it. So here I'm going to pick a random letter generator that will give me a random letter, and then I'll pick a book based on that random letter. So an author's name that starts with the random letter. So that is the 2 prompts for February. For March, we have one of the least borrowed. Now, this is actually going to be interesting. It will require you to ask your librarian, but what I want to do is ask them if they have any numbers on the book that has been borrowed the least at the library. Now, that probably is going to be an older book. Maybe it's fiction, non-fiction, poetry, and you can always use caveats, of course. But I'm really looking forward to this one. And the other one for March is yes, it was right way up. And it's one of the oldest books they have. Now, I am going to interpret this prompt as the oldest in regard to what they have owned the longest. But you can also, of course, interpret this as oldest in the sense that this is the first oldest published that they have, which might not necessarily be the same thing. And then, of course, based on what you then will do with it. If you're going to go for the first published, you can get quite old books at certain libraries, but you might not necessarily be able to borrow them home. So figure out how this works for you. And that is the 2 prompts for March. I'm mixing it up now for April. And the first prompt for April is mood at the library. So it's another mood read. And now this is going out of the boat because this is the second time we have it. And the second prompt for April is one of the least borrowed. So for April, we actually got 2 prompts that we already have picked. So these are the 2 prompts for April, and both of these will now go out of the selection. Mixing it up for May. First prompt for May is one of the oldest books they have. So this is one we also have picked earlier. And the other one is random letter fiction. So this has also been used earlier. So oldest, the way you want to interpret oldest, and random letter fiction, pick a random letter and pick an author based on that random letter. We are now going for June, and first prompt for June is rent a film and a book. So a lot of libraries do have other things you can borrow than just books. One I know which is very popular at mine is that you can rent a film. Now, I don't necessarily mean that you should have to watch the film that you rented if you don't have the equipment. So you can rent a film or borrow a film and then watch it at a streaming service if that is how you can solve that technically. And a book, which is then a film based on a book. So, and then you can compare to see how the film adaptation of the book is. So that was the first prompt for June. And the second prompt for June is Dewey Decimal Random Number. So we talked about how fiction books are very often organized by author's last name, but non-fiction books are organized very often by Dewey Decimal or a similar organization system. So the way I'm now going to do it, this is about non-fiction books. And then you just to a random number generator based on the organization system in your library and pick a book based on that random number. I hope that makes sense. So we actually got two completely new prompts for June. It's rent a film and a book, and the film should be based on the book, and Dewey Decimal Random Number for the nonfiction section. Mixing it up for July. First prompt of July is Dewey Decimal Random Number. So it's going to be nonfiction in both June and July. And the second prompt is going to be, that's also upside down, sorry about that, new books. So with the new books, I mean what has the library newly acquired. At my library, they very often have a display with new books, and just pick one of the new books. So these are the two prompts for July. Mixing it up for August. First prompt is going to be random number. So this is giving all the shelves a number and then having a number generator randomly pick one. So this is the second time we have this prompt. And the other prompt for August is book club. Most libraries have a book club, so read the book club book. If you don't want to go to the book club, it's fine. You don't have to do that. It's just read the book club book. It doesn't have to be this. It doesn't have to be August book club book. So you can look at the book club's books that they've had earlier this year in 2025, or if they're going to do later in 2025, but one of the book club books in 2025. So these are the two prompts for August. Mixing it up for September. So we've lost a lot of the prompts because we've already picked them twice. But first prompt for September is librarian recommends. So librarian recommends, they very often have displays with this is what our librarians recommend. Or you can ask a librarian what they would recommend that you read from their library. So that was the first prompt for September. And the second prompt for September is new books. So for September, we have these two prompts. Mixing it up for October. The first prompt for October is And I think this is actually the last of our prompts. Read a non-fiction book about a non-reading activity they offer. So as I said earlier, libraries are important institutions, and very often they offer other things than just books. I know, for example, that at my library they have help for homework, they do seedling exchange, they have knitting clubs, they have chess clubs, and a lot of other random things like that. So sort of look into what kind of activities your library offer and pick a non-fiction book that fits into one of those themes. So that was first prompt for October. And second prompt for October is rent a film and a book. So rent a film that's based on a book, and also rent the book that it's based on. So these are the two prompts for October. Mixing it up for November. So you all now know what prompts are in there. It's just interesting which one will come up which. So the first prompt for November is librarian recommends, and the second prompt for November is book club. So these are the two prompts for November. So there are just two prompts left for December. They are themed display and read a non-fiction about a non-reading activity they offer. And the non-activity can also be once a sort of not something they do regularly, but can be also yearly, with the action that this is actually happening in December. So these are the two prompts for December. So these are then the 24 prompts over the next 12 months, where I'm going to try to use my library more, try to see a little bit about what the library actually offers of activities, both book-related and non-book related. And I, of course, am going to make videos about my experience of trying to use the library more, and hopefully I will be able to make this more of something that just happens in 2026, 2027, 2028, so going back into the habit of using the library. Please let me know if you want to join me on this journey, if you want to also use these prompts when visiting your own library. Let's talk about how wonderful libraries are, because they are a wonderful institution. And thank you for listening to me screaming into the void.